Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Anybody? He picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. This is the Intangibles. I am Price Carter, and he is Christian Ainsworth, and we are here for another thrilling live edition of the podcast. Today, we are going to be shortly joined by Matthew Lane of Kansas City Sports Network to be doing a Chiefs 7-round mock draft because we are degenerates, we are addicts, and we need more draft content. And we will then be doing our top 10 running backs for this class. We've been last week we did our top 10 wide receivers. Going to be breaking down our top 10 running backs as we approach what is just a month away on this exact day. The draft is getting closer and closer. Christian, how the hell are you today, sir?
Dude, good, man. You talk about degeneracy today during work, every plan period, every little study time that we had, I was rolling the mock draft, man. I went completely all the way through. I don't know if you've done it yet, gone like team 1 to team 30 or pick 32 and just kind of seen what all has been out there. Like there's just some interesting ways the draft could fall this year.
I actually have a really hard time doing a true like all 32 teams mock. One, because I know that there's going to be lots of trades, and two, I just seem to like always do one incorrect pick and then I'm just like, screw it, it's all trash, and just like want to throw it in the trash. Or I'll just do something like, oh, they would never take this guy, or like, oh shoot, I forgot that they signed this guy in free agency, and it just changes everything, and then it throws the whole thing off. And plus I kind of like quietly have that ghost in the back of my head who's just like, oh, don't take him here because the Chiefs could really use this guy or whatever, And I don't know, the first round, it's its own living, breathing thing that's always so fun to talk about and enjoy. But yeah, man, it's really getting closer. And one thing that I wanted to talk about, and we'll hit the Mike Panell news here in a second, is just like as the draft gets closer and closer, how much groupthink takes over the draft. And I wanted to talk about this specifically with one player, one that a lot of people will be very familiar with here in Kansas City, someone that you're very familiar with as a Missouri alumni, is Luther Burden. I don't know. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Today, there was an article that was put out that had just kind of some scouting conversations about various players. And, the article kind of made Luther Burden out to sound like he's a bit of a problem. I just don't at this point, like more and more people like Kuiper, Daniel Jeremiah, some of these really big draft minds are just frequently leaving him out of the first round. I don't know what to think of this. Like, I really think that this is just groupthink taking over, that he's some sort of slot-only gadget player, and that's not at all what I see him as.
Oh, no, me neither. And this is definitely a situation where, like, if you see him fall, it's not because of his play style or what he's put on the field. Like, this is by far, it's not like people see him as a gadget-only guy. It's not like people see him as somebody who can only play in the slot. Or who hasn't put up good tape. Like there's an argument to be made that maybe, hey, with Brady Cook, he didn't progress as much as people would have liked to him this past year. But other than that, I mean, fantastic tape, fantastic player. Like this just seems, like you said, like one of these things that like we're going to look back on and be like, yeah, he wasn't making it to 31. I don't know why we thought he'd fall midway through the second.
Well, okay, so to provide a little bit of context on this, Billy M_91, he's a really great follow for draft content. He posted a screenshot from I'm not sure where this article is from. Bob McGinn is the guy who wrote this. And he said he's a 5-star. They kiss his ass for 3 years just to keep him there. Another scout said the girlfriend is his manager. The mom is a problem, but he's a good player on Saturday, and he's very ordinary Monday through Friday. First off, everything I've heard about him is that he was totally fine with NIL, with being there. He chose Missouri. He stayed local. And from the very get-go, as a true freshman, they start feeding him the ball any way they can, jet sweeps, line him up at running back, all sorts of creative ways to get him the ball. And, like he was frequently like the Luther Burden potato chips. Like this has been a thing there for a while that he was constantly fed attention and things. To me, it's just dramatically overthinking things. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Adonai Mitchell from last year, where like all you hear is like, oh yeah, there's all these concerns and stuff. And then like, what were they? No one could ever really put their finger next to it. And I don't know, like, I don't think that Bob McGinnis, the person that wrote this, it sounds like to me he's quoting scouts, but to me, it's just like, oh yeah, he's Monday through Friday. And like also a guy that there's zero sort of criminal activity. Like Mike Green is a potential first round pick and edge rusher, has had 2 sexual assault accusations that like required investigation. That's the type of thing that like, all right, well, that's a really big issue, right? Versus this is like, oh, his wife, his mom, whatever, his girlfriend, like, come on, man. He's a great player. And if scouts can't understand the step back and productivity from this year to next year, I really question their ability. Because I mean, it's just honestly like, look at the production, look at what happened around him. Brady Cook was in and out of the lineup. He wasn't healthy. He didn't have as good of a season. To me, it's just very obvious why this downfall or this step back happened in productivity. And it's very clear to me that that's why this happened, and I don't know. It just feels like they're trying to really galaxy brain something that doesn't need to be galaxy brained.
Well, and the difference with Adonai Mitchell too is that there were some like injury concerns about his knees. I remember that being an issue going into the draft.
And
but
he has like type 1 adult diabetes, which is like there's several players in the league who are managing that just fine. That was one of the things that was silly.
But it does seem like there's at least 1 or 2 players every year that kind of get this treatment of like, yeah, he's really talented, but there's off the field concerns. What are they? We don't, he's a problem. That's what they always say. He's a problem child. Something's going wrong. It's like, okay, well, we'll see on draft day whether he falls like Adonai Mitchell does, because I know people that had him midway through the first as an option, or people were saying don't let him fall to the Chiefs at 32, and we see how that went. But no, I could see Luther Burden really coming in and being one of those guys that like everybody in their mock has at pick 35, 37, and he's pick 18 or 20. Like, it just seems like one of those situations.
To me, it's just there's so many teams I think he could be such a great fit for with what he does after the catch. And people like, here's the thing: if Kadarius Toney can be picked with a 20th pick, and I'm not just talking about who he is today as a player, but what he was coming out of Florida, where like this truly was a guy that you had to create ways to get him the ball. Luther Burden to me is not that at all. And people act like he can only win out of the slot when I don't think that that's what he is at all. To me, it's a lot like Jamar Chase. Like Jamar Chase, he runs out of the slot quite a bit. And guess what? The slot's a great place for your primary playmaker to run, because it gets you creative ways to get out of off the line of scrimmage. You put your best player in the positions to succeed, right? That's what that is. It's not necessarily that he can't. So, a team like, I think the Broncos would make a lot of sense with what Bo Nix does, relying on yards after the catch. They don't really have a guy to run out of the slot right now. You think about their best wide receiver, Courtland Sutherland. That's an X. That's on the outside. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. He'd make a lot of sense for the Commanders. He'd make a lot of sense for the Bills. Like, you can just go on and on and on about teams that would make a lot of sense for. And if he's there at 31, I'm not necessarily sure that the Chiefs are picking him, but I think it would make a lot of sense. An offense that's relied on a lot of yak over the years here. You get 2 elite yak guys with Rashee Rice, with Luther Burden, Xavier Worthy. You can stretch the field. You still have Hollywood Brown. I mean, that to me sounds pretty exciting. So I'm not going to push the panic button yet on him as a player. I certainly think that a lot of these are just rumors and just that. So I'm just really surprised by that we're sitting here talking about this still.
Oh yeah. Well, and especially with all the hype coming into the draft with him before this, it was like, man, I saw some teams, like you said, the Broncos. That's who I had him mocked to every single mock draft I did today, just because he makes so much sense. But it's like, there are so many teams that would love a yak guy that they can put, and, timing wise, that the Z is always the guy who, is usually the open receiver. It's like a lot of teams would love that. So I don't understand it either, man.
Okay, so let's switch a little bit more to people who are actually Kansas City Chiefs right now. So the Chiefs, they officially bring back Mike Panell today, and I felt like this was honestly expected at this point as to where the team nose tackle was like one of the few positions that they still didn't have on the field. Today, they could line up and play a football game and be competitive, right? As long as everyone's healthy and those type of things, I feel like this team can line up here. I don't think we need to, spend 15 minutes of analysis on bringing Mike Panell back. But real quick, what were your thoughts about Mike Panell coming back, and what does this mean for the defensive tackle need overall that the team has in the draft?
Oh, I think it's incredible. Like, this is another classic Veach move where it's, hey, get the roster ready, and then we'll see what the draft brings us. We can pick best player available. Like, people were mad at the Charles Omenihu signing. And I saw people today on Twitter that were mad at the Mike Panell signing. It's like, guys, it would be incredible if we had, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 superstars that we could bring in every single offseason. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Like, there's cap limits, and we honestly don't need that. We need a one tech that can come in, stop the run, and allow, I mean, he's not a 4-down player, but you get him in there, first down, second down, stop the run, put Charles Omenihu on the inside, and let your boys work. Like, to me, he was a perfect scheme fit before. He's a perfect scheme fit now. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. Right now, all they had was Siaka Ika on there for nose tackle. Mm-hmm. So you bring him back. I think that's a great fit for, obviously knows the system. Makes a lot of sense to bring him back. And to me, I think people forget that they have to get back to the team that got their ass kicked in the Super Bowl. That's the team that they have to get back to before they can improve. When they walked off the field and the team that they had constructed in the offseason before they brought back Trey Smith, all those things, that team was worse, right? So I think people look at moves like bringing Mike Panell back or like bringing Charles Omenihu back as, oh, they're just running it back with the same players. I think it was good that they moved on from Derek Nottie. I think he was the lesser player of that group, but also the cost of bringing these guys back, of Panell, of Omenihu, they're not exorbitant, right? They weren't handing out big contracts to these guys. So I think it just raises the floor and, again, allows you to be more flexible at pick 31 or wherever they want to pick, right? Like I think the defensive tackle depth really kind of comes in more on day 2 than round 1. I think Harmon, there's a couple other guys, Darius Alexander's gotten some talk. We talk about Walter Nolan, but I think day 2 is the real depth of where defensive tackle is. So again, at pick 31, it frees them up to do what they think is best player available.
Yeah, and not to mention trade up or trade back. If there's a player that they love that they want to go get, or there's a player they feel like, they could get a little bit later that they're banking on, it's like it leaves them with every option available. Like, they're not banking on an offensive tackle dropping. They're not begging to climb up above the Bills again to get a player that they want. It's like we're in a situation where they can do whatever. And that's Brett Veach's entire offseason every single year. Get us to that point, and I think he's done a great job.
Awesome. Well, we are joined now by Mr. Best Player Available himself. We have Matty Lane from Kansas City Sports Network. Matty, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, listen, thank you guys for having me on. And, I have to come back as anytime you guys ask with that kind of introduction. Let me tell you what.
Well, first off, like, if you're not already listening to Kansas City Sports Network, specifically their draft coverage, you're doing it wrong. Matt, Kent, they do a great job. Craig, when he's around too, the whole team does a great job of covering the draft. I know, just speaking for myself personally, you guys helped pique my interest in the draft in 2020, 2021, whenever you guys first started getting going. You guys really helped me get into the draft, and now it's a huge part of what I do. So congrats to you guys for great coverage. Love all the work that you guys do. And real quick, why don't you tell us where to get the KCSN draft guide?
Oh, see, look, this is one I was ready for it this time. I'm usually never ready when I have to do this. If you would like the KCSN draft guide, you can go to gum.co/KCSN25. That is where you can pre-order it. We're still doing pre-sale right now. It comes out on April 7th. So we are getting there. Kent is working tirelessly behind the scenes to get everything formatted and ready for everybody. But that's April 7th, gum.co/KCSN. And I mean, listen, if you guys haven't got the KCSN draft guide before, I just want to say this. This is the one thing that I do that I will peddle a little bit. I will go out and say, hey, this is something I really think if you're a Chiefs fan, you should look into, because no matter what level of fan you are, whether you pay attention to every single game, every single move, or you just tune in on Sundays or whatever it may be, the draft is the only thing that's going to happen from now until midsummer. at most. And the biggest part that's going to change from your team is the draft. These new players coming in, you might not have an idea who some of them are unless you spend every single Saturday watching every single minute of every single Saturday watching, college football. You might want a quick little briefing on who these guys are. We tried to provide that and then how they will fit with the Chiefs going forward. So it's the one thing that I am very proud of that we started doing. And that was awesome to hear that it helped you become a little bit more interested in the draft as you were coming up into this and everything. Cause that's what we aim to do. It's not like what we say or anything like that is gospel. We just want to start conversations and get people into the draft because we are all just a bunch of friends that like watching football and just happen to really love the draft. And so the more people that get into it, the better.
Yeah, and I think probably the best thing that you guys do is the scheme fits and the comparisons that you do for players. A lot of times they're Chiefs specific, right? So it's not just any wide receiver; it's Jeremy Maclin or it's Eric Berry or those type of things. I think that's really great because sometimes you can have a perception of a player and how they fit, and those things hold up over time too. You and Kent do a great job of tweeting out screenshots of free agents that are brought in. And, your write up on them back then out of the draft adds a little bit more context. So yeah, totally worth the money. Save it on your computer. You can have it for years later. It's awesome. And it's Chiefs specific draft coverage. So shout out to you guys for all the great work that you do there. So Matt, we brought you on here to do a Chiefs mock draft and then also to talk about your combine with farm animals at some point.
Let's go.
We need to hit that. But we're going to be using PFS Mock Draft Simulator today. It's not my favorite simulator, but it's ad free, and I don't feel like giving pre-pub to another website. So the way this is going to work, we're going to just walk through here. We're just not going to do any trades, and I'm going to be sharing the screen here, and I'll do a pick and walk it through with you, and then we'll have Christian walk through a pick with you. That way, I'm not just hogging all the airways here. So we're going to go ahead and run it here, and as we're running it, now that the Chiefs bring back Mike Panell, what do you view their top needs at pick 31 to be?
I don't know. I love that Mike Panell came back. I just don't know if it changes anything from a draft strategy perspective. I mean, I'm assuming it's a 1-year deal. I'm assuming it's a lot like the last couple where it's close to vet minimum. So there's no long-term stakes into it. And the Chiefs are at a point now where all of their drafts should be not just about the upcoming season, but the next 2 to 3 seasons looking ahead. So I don't think the Panell aspect changes anything. So still defensive line, probably right at the top end of my needs. I still think the Chiefs need to add another weapon, whether that's tight end, wide receiver, running back. I do think they need to keep adding talent to the wide receiver room. I'm not too picky, or not the wide receiver room, but the offense. I'm not too picky about what position. Just get some more help on that side of the ball because it feels like they're running a little thin. So they can go any direction. It's just I do think they have some spots they need to focus on going forward.
Totally agree. I feel like where they're standing right now, and we're kind of talking about that right when you joined, that this is pretty close to the team that won 15 games last year. Now, you can look at that in one way and be like, hey, it's a 15-win team. It's basically all still intact. They can build upon this and be just as good or better. Or you can look at it and be like, how many one-score wins did they had? What does this look like with injuries, those type of things? Maybe this is a team that's a lot closer to 12 or 13 wins that they've got to, now improve through the draft. So we're sitting here at pick 31. Let's just kind of peruse through some positions here. I think that this actually is a pretty good example here, looking at some of the players that go ahead. You've got the tackle run with Kelvin Banks, Joshua Simmons. You've got the 2 running backs with Genty and Hampton, Egbuka, Burden are both off the board. Everyone's favorite, Walter Nolan's off the board. So this actually isn't a great way that this fell for us, right? So what position are you thinking you want to take a look at here?
Man, yeah. I mean, this isn't a great board looking like what's left for the Chiefs, but it's also very reasonable. This seems, at least as where we stand right now, here at the end of March, where this seems pretty reasonable what the Chiefs are looking at, what's going off. You got the offensive tackle run, the high end defensive tackle run is off the board. I mean, based on what I'm just kind of looking at here, I'm still a believer in Nick Scorton, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. I think he fits a lot of what Steve Spagnuolo likes out of the defensive end spot. And while with Charles Omenihu coming back, I wouldn't say defensive end is the biggest need. If you look at what's going on, they can get out of Mike Dana's contract after this season. Charles Omenihu is only under a 1-year deal. Then you're kind of relying on just Felix. So I wouldn't be opposed to taking a defensive end. And so if I was kind of looking at this, we're looking at Nick Scorton, maybe a Darius Alexander from Toledo, but I feel like first round's a little bit rich for a guy that's going to be 25, I think, in October.
Yeah, I actually on my Twitter page today, I went through every first round pick that they've made in the Andy Reid era and kind of went through their RAS. Did they play in a Power Five conference? Their age when drafted, and they've never drafted anyone older than 23 in the first round. And the only guy who was a lower RAS was Clyde Edwards-Helaire as far as their picks there. And the only guy not a Power Five was Eric Fisher, and he was a 1-1. Now, let's see here. The safety from South Carolina, Ewan Morey, he's on the board here. For some reason, PFF's way lower on him. I would be shocked if he's here at 31. But what do you think about, like, let's say it's either Ewan Morey or Malachi Starks. What do you think about them at pick 31?
Ooh, so I'm a big Malachi Starks fan. I'd be all over Starks in a heartbeat. I think as a whole, some people, not everybody, not any specific people, but just as a whole, the draft community is getting a little out over their skis, focusing on his time testing and not so much the impact he had when he was on the field. Or if the NFL Combine did that awesome thing where they give you the miles per hour during drills and go find his name at like the top 5 of every single drill. So he plays fast. So I think Starks is a stud. He's like a top 12, maybe a top 10 player for me in the entire class. So I'd be all over that one. I'm not as big on Ewan Morey as other people are. I get the stiffness in his hips and how slow he is to process some stuff gives me a little bit of a pause, especially dropping him into a Steve Spagnuolo defense where he would presumably play strong safety. I don't think that he just sees stuff as quick as a Justin Reed has in that spot or as Tyrann Mathieu did before. Even Jaden Hicks right now, I think sees the game cleaner than he does when he was coming out of Washington State. So I'm a little lower on him. So I'm okay passing him up, but I'm with you. I would be surprised if he was available at the end of round 1.
So do you think that Ewan Morey and Hicks could exist on the field together?
I think it'd be a tough slot. I mean, we got to see what they plan on this with Hicks right now. He played a lot more kind of like deep half stuff last year. He was playing more in Brian Cook's role than he was Justin Reed's role last year when they used him. I don't know if that's his best spot. I imagine that Hicks is sliding down to that more strong safety or just kind of the box safety, the guy that moves around a little bit more. But I feel like those two would have a lot of overlap. I don't feel great about either one of them being your predominant deep safety. So yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap there. And I don't know how they would work together necessarily side by side.
Okay, so I'm thinking we'll go Nick Scorton here, although I like him playing a lot more closer to that like 275 mark that I think he did at Purdue. Yeah. I'm not necessarily sure what the plan was there with him losing so much weight at the combine. I think he can rush from the 3-tech too. He doesn't do it much, but I like him. He's a little bit shorter, and I think he's a lot closer to like Justin Houston than Charles Omenihu as far as like the build and the type goes. But I like him, and I think he's got a lot of upside too.
Yeah, he's a little bit more like his frame, not necessarily his weight or his like measurables, but he's a little bit more sawed off than I think people initially expect when they look at him. But he's physical and he plays a violent brand of football. So like, I definitely understand like why people think that Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo would like him. I think he's a couple pounds underneath what Spags usually likes out of his defensive ends, but he hits the height, he hits the arm length, kind of not thresholds, but preferences that they have as a team. So yeah, he's right there on the cusp of being like a really high fitted defensive end spot for the Chiefs. Weight's an easy thing to manipulate, so I wouldn't be surprised if he plays above 260, which is a big deal. I will say my only hesitation with him is he's more of a penetrating run defender rather than somebody's going to stack up a tackle and hold them at the line of scrimmage and play through his length and extension, which is a difference than how the Chiefs like to play. But I will think you can train it. He's 20 years old. You can probably coach that into him going forward. So I do like the upside. I like the athletic profile. And if you go back to Purdue, he gave you those high-end flashes as a pass rusher that I think really get you intrigued.
One of the youngest guys in the draft as well. All right, Christian, you tell me where to go with Matty here at pick 63.
Well, first I want to say, I know Price already said it already, but we really appreciate you being on, Matt, and we love all the stuff that you do over there. My question to you is, so you talked about adding another weapon. Are you bullish on Elijah Arroyo, or could you see them going to like a young running back like Dylan Sampson who could come in, or does I just missed his name. The DB from Notre Dame kind of pique your interest here, because he's a guy I could really see who has all that upside coming in and making a huge impact on defense as well.
Yeah, I like all of these options that we're looking at. If we're talking Benjamin Morrison, the
Benjamin
quarterback from Notre Dame.
Yes.
I don't dislike him at all. I really like the player. And if he's available, I think it's a home run pick, but you got to do your medical research. I think he's now had 2 hip surgeries, one in high school and then one this past year coming out of Notre Dame. And I believe it was the a torn like labrum in his hip, which I don't know the long lasting effects of that, but it seems like at least, listening to the circles, there might be some concerns over where his health is. So how you got to figure that all checked out. I would not be opposed to that pick if, the Chiefs come back and they say, hey, medical's A+ for us. But of the weapons, Arroyo does intrigue me at this point. I think he's the type of tight end that Chiefs always like. They never actually end up drafting them these past few years, but they always like these really athletic move tight ends that can go out and run like more expansive route trees. He's not just a seam runner. You're not just going to run him on verticals right down the middle of the field. He actually has some hip dip and the ability to change direction. So I think looking at him as this potential Travis Kelce replacement and even more in a more direct one-to-one role than even Jared Wiley was last year coming out of the draft. I do think that makes a lot of sense here. You just got the same thing with him, just that medical concern that you just have to make sure that your team signs off on, which isn't our choice. That's all up to those guys over there.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely some medical concerns for him. What's nice about this pick, though, is we're at pick 63, correct? We come back at pick 66. So this is one of those ones you can go back to back on. Like if you think a player is going to drop, or if the Chiefs think a player is going to drop maybe a little bit further, they can pick maybe 2 guys that have about the same grade on their board. Honestly, I'm good with either one of those. If we want to go with Elijah and just bank on the medicals being great, how far do you think a running back slides before the Chiefs are like in on him? You know what I mean? Like Dylan Sampson's intriguing. If you watch the highlight reel, he's the best running back of the draft. If you watch his actual film, like he's kind of so. Travion Henderson being here, I don't think is something that is realistic. Or DJ Giddens, he might be an interesting pick here at pick 66 or 63.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I don't think Henderson being here is the most realistic, but if he was, I think you jump on top of that. And like, I guess the idea of him still being available as team, maybe not every team sees him as a 3-down player. They see him more as a 3rd down change of pace back. And even still, with his home run ability and how good he is on 3rd downs, I would expect him to be gone. This is probably a tad early for Sampson for me, just because, like you said, when you watch all of it, he's still trying to learn how to run, right? He's a guy coming from the most wide open offense that you're ever going to see at Tennessee. So there's constantly so much space for him to work with. And you can just tell that like the instincts, he's another super young guy. I think he's also just 20 years old just 20 years old. You can tell that he's still trying to figure out how to operate as a running back. And I think when you throw him into the NFL and everything condenses more because you get rid of the wide hashes, the wide splits, it might get tight. So it's probably a little early for me on Sampson. So I would lean Arroyo if we're still at pick 63 right now and just see what shakes out over the next 2 or 3 picks before they're up again.
All right, Mr. One season over 100 yards, Elijah Arroyo on the board.
Let's go.
Not that I have any opinions on the subject or anything.
No. That's a completely fair. Like I want to be very clear. This is, and he got hurt again, so he couldn't, or like I should say, not hurt.
He carved up the Senior Bowl, and then he's like, oh yeah, well, can't do the combines. Or sorry, guys.
Yeah, now I guess like my not pushback. Like the only thing I would throw to that is the Chiefs haven't really shied away from taking guys that have some medical concerns, whether it's injuries or bigger deal like life things, as long as they get a pass from it, right? As long as their team says, oh no, that's okay. So even going back to just guys over the years, or even going all the way back to Travis Kelce, it wasn't like he was the picture of health coming out of Cincinnati. And I understand different stabs and stuff like that. It is notable that the Chiefs will go against medical stuff, but I 100% get any concern about taking him early in the draft because 1 year over 100 yards, he can't even make it through a Senior Bowl week right now and then go test the combine because he got banged up again. So there's certainly some concerns there.
Okay, well, the Chiefs have the next Justin Houston and the next Travis Kelce in this draft. Let's see what they do here with their 3rd round pick here from the Titans. So we've went tight end, we've went edge. Now, where do you want to head, Matt? What do you think?
Well, okay. I was looking at it here just on this big board here that you have up. And so here's the thing. I played around with this PFF simulator a little bit earlier today, and I saw some of some trends here, and I don't know how realistic this is, but Alfred Collins still being available at the start of the 3rd round to me is a little devaluing of what he brings. I think he is probably the bestest pure nose tech, the best pure run stopping defensive tackle in this class. He's got super long arms, big wide base. I think you're going to plop him into any defense, and he is going to immediately be a plus player of a nose tackle. not a ton of pass rush, but man, I think what he gives you on early downs is phenomenal. So like you would have a hard time prying me away from looking at Alfred Collins to put next to Chris Jones here and working with Jerry Tillery and all these other guys. But I am open. If you guys have another position that you guys want to check in on and stuff like that, we can.
Well, I agree on your Alfred Collins analysis. 35-inch arms, really like the length, really like the power. The Chiefs have kind of sniffed around these guys a little bit. Like there were some rumors about Mozzie Smith a couple years ago. I know that they're a little bit different bodies, but something else that I kind of like, and again, we know these simulators too well. If you think I post too many mock drafts, you should see the ones I delete on Twitter because like I post too many. But looking at this, like I love Trey Harris still here, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals. Christian really likes Savion Williams for reasons I still don't understand. Isaiah Bond will be a Chief. It's just a matter of time. So I think there's some wide receiver. I think there's a good chance here at 95 that you can still catch a running back, a wide receiver that you really like. You got to move tight end here and Arroyo. So I agree. I think Alfred Collins is the best player on the board for me too right now. Although I will shout out Vernon Broughton is someone that I've kind of been turned on to lately. I like some of what he's got. I really like CJ West. I think he's really explosive. I don't think he's the same type of player as Collins. Omar Norman Lott, I think there's some medical red flags that are a concern that I've seen reported as well too. So we'll take Alfred Collins. The Chiefs just keep stacking these Texas players and it's worked for them.
Yeah, and like I wanted to say CJ West. I really did. I think this might be a tiny bit rich just to get sitting a little bit older guy, only the one level of Power 5 competition. But like I watched CJ West go up in the Michigan game and then the Ohio State game back to back there almost for Indiana. And it's like, man, he looks like he belongs with these true blue blood programs. And he is dominating this as the guy on this defense. And he's done nothing in the process from how he played down at the Shrine into his performance at the Combine. So CJ West is a name that I do think people got to keep an eye on, that you don't always see as a top 100 guy, depending on where, you do your mock drafts and stuff, but he's somebody that's definitely worth noting. I just think that Collins' ability to just step in day one and be dominant versus the run was just too good to pass up at that point.
Yeah. And Indiana, it was just like so crazy how they rebuilt that program. And really, it's like, how are they doing this? Like, I remember taking a look at them when I was writing my prospect watch list for the draft during the season. I'm like, who are the guys on this team? It's Cignetti's like, he's a great coach, but there's got to be some dudes here that are a part of this flip over. So, all right, Christian, pick 95. You and Matty are on the clock.
So I think maybe Chiefs Twitter would destroy us if we didn't at least look at the tackle position at some point during this draft. I understand we just got somebody, but there are a few names here that I really I don't know if it's realistic if Cameron Williams is this far, but that I really like. Charles Grant is another guy who's kind of like an under the radar tackle pick. Is there somebody here that you like see as perfect value?
I think this point for Charles Grant is pretty good value. And if you are a team that is going to trust your development and you can snag him at this point and see if you can turn him into whether it's a tackle or a guard, I'm not sure where I actually would want to settle him in yet, because his footwork is not bad. It's just so unconventional at this point that I don't even think I can say, oh yeah, he will function as a tackle or guard, but just the raw athleticism, the length, the power, the core strength that he can get this torque out of. I really do like Charles Grant. My gut feeling right now is I just don't think the Chiefs want to deal with another young guy that they have to completely develop. Like, I just think this might be a year where they just pass on the tackle thing, see what keeps shaking out on what they have. They got themselves a bridge and they'll approach it again next year. I'm not saying we have to do that. Just when I do a lot of mock drafts lately, I've mostly been trying to avoid going tackle as much as, that itch gets to me, because I just don't know if they want to keep trying to develop these guys that they're taking in the top 100.
No, I agree. I could absolutely see them passing up on some of these developmental guys, especially with Moore, who they just brought in. I think they kind of see him as kind of almost that same thing where it's like, hey, we got to focus on the guy who's going to be starting real games. Not to add another Texas player to the mix here, but that safety is looking pretty nice. Andrew Mbuka. I wouldn't mind him here either.
Oh, go ahead. I love Makuba. I think he's clinically underrated for a safety class that I think has a lot of good players. But if you want to tell me there's one guy that has the best combination of like range and man coverage ability, like for a slot wide receiver, not a tight end, he would be the guy that I would pick. Like, I just think that he is one of the premier, him and like Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame are probably like my ideal, just true deep safeties from this class. I think Makuba's just a better athlete. So I really like him. I think this value is really good right here. I'm also not, it would be hard for me to sit here at this moment for myself personally and look at Jalen Royals being available at the end of round 3 and not think that that guy gives the Chiefs a like legitimate X wide receiver possible player. And I don't even just mean pure catch, contested catches or anything like that, but a guy that can line up on the line of scrimmage, beat press, maybe give you a little bit more than you've gotten out of a Watson or an MVS over the years. So like if I'm looking at it entirely from like a value component, I think Royals would be hard for me to pass up, but Makuba would be probably number 2 on that exact same list.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. No mention of Savion Williams is kind of breaking my heart right now. You don't want Cordell Patterson on the Chiefs?
Listen, I would love Cordero Patterson in like round 6. But
Okay. All right.
I gotta sit down with more Savion Williams because I've seen enough highlight catches to say maybe there's something there. But every time I watch him, I just end up getting frustrated and thinking I'm not looking at a larger version of Kadarius Toney.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough to see. And with him running out of the backfield, just so I coach high school football. Wish I coached college. And when you see a player like that, you're like, oh, that's a football player. Like your immediate thought is like, that guy knows, he's got the vision. Like you can kind of see, just kind of hope the development. But there are some things you watch on his tape that you're like, well, it's college. You probably should be able to do some of that stuff. But all right, we can go Jalen Royals if you want, I guess, as the guest.
I'm going to take this as my victory because we argued about these two guys last week.
Oh, okay.
And I was a big Royals guy, and I said, all right, the yak here, like this is a Rashee Rice guy. He's going to run out the Z and the X. So Matty's the tiebreaker. I was right. You were wrong. So
whatever.
How about that? All right. So this is the running back selection. Basically, it's pretty much how it goes. Okay, so here on the board here, we will peruse the other positions. We've got Jaden Blue, who came on really late in the season for Texas. Couple of fumbling issues. I know that there was some stuff around him in the Shrine Bowl, just kind of no showing that was a little strange too. You've got Mr. Outside Zone, Bayshal Tootin, big body Khalil Mullins, Trevor Etienne, I think does a lot of things that the Chiefs might like. Down the board here, Jordan James, Marcus Yarns, Ollie Gordon, LaQuint Allen. What are your thoughts on what's on the board here at running back?
My thoughts are this is a rough running back selection spot for the Chiefs if it falls a particular way. And it's not that I don't like some of these players, but like you mentioned it there with Jaden Blue, there's some definite fumbling for him and Tootin, really. There's some significant fumbling issues. I don't know. Both of them have very, not limited, but not a ton of reps running, I would say, what's like a real NFL style offensive running back. Bayshal Tootin, like all of his carries are outside zone or jet sweeps, essentially. And like, I think he has less than 30 career carries between the tackles coming out of Virginia Tech. It's just so minimal. It's all outside zone stuff. Blue only really has like a year of backup, like rotational running back reps. So both those guys, while dynamic, I don't know how well they fit with what the Chiefs have. I don't know if either one of them are going to come in early on and really be competing with a Pacheco or a Kareem Hunt for snaps early on. It's like, I like Jaden Blue, the player, the best out of those guys, but I think we might need to look at some other positions here because like, I don't love this running back selection here.
I feel like ETN might be the most complete player that's in this bunch here, but I don't really like him here because I think that he's limited frame, limited athlete, had a DUI last year when he switched from Florida to Georgia, of course, like all good Georgia players do. So yeah, let's see what else is here.
I mean, like, look at there, doesn't look great. I like Jack Kaiser as a player. I don't think he has a specific or great role for the Chiefs, though. Given that they just bring back Nick Bolton, you also have Leo around. Like, he just doesn't have a complementary skill set as a linebacker with them. So yeah, as we're going through this, Billy Bowman's not a terrible guy to consider, but safety out of Oklahoma. But you would have to be more willing to move Trent McDuffie out of the slot. I think you get the most value out of Bowman by allowing him to step down into the slot and kind of play as some man coverage out of the slot, as well as a deep half guy. So this isn't the best of boards to the Chiefs. I know we're not doing trades, and nor am I super certain that teams would be wanting to trade up into this spot. So this might be a pick where you have to not necessarily reach, but take a guy that you don't love. If there's any positions that you think that, we need to take a peek at, please do feel free. So, because right now, nothing's speaking to me a ton.
Yeah, what do you think about Quincy Riley, the cornerback from Louisville? I know that there's some people who are higher on him than maybe others.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're now getting into the range where I feel comfortable with him. he does some of the stuff that I gravitate towards too in a cornerback, a little bit scrappy, lets people know about it a little bit. He has the versatility to play all around. I don't know if I see all the time the high level ability to become a starter, but at this point in time too, you're talking about day 3, a guy that can just come in and earn reps within the first couple years is probably worth looking at. So yeah, I'm not opposed to a Quincy Riley. I think he might be another guy, though, that I see a little bit more in the slot. And if I'm going to take a guy that has more slot ability, I would probably lean towards Bowman just on the ability to play as a deep half safety with Hicks and Brian Cook a little bit more.
As a man who's eaten a runza in Lincoln Memorial Stadium and owns Nebraska gear, may I interest you in Ty Robinson, who PFF is historically low on for some reason?
Yeah, I think he's off the board at this point, but there's not a ton of production that goes with it. There's a little bit of a tweener size and like profile that's going on. So if you got to this spot and this is the kind of board we're looking at, I think Ty Robinson is the perfect kind of player that you look at the size profile, the physical ability, and at worst, you're like, okay, this guy's going to give us some effort, some energy, and a physical presence for us to run. If we can develop into a pass rusher, we now just got 3 defensive linemen from this draft that are all going to kind of matter. So I do think at this point in time, like that would be a perfect time to take a swing.
I've been shocked that he was the defensive tackle from Nebraska that climbed up the boards. I thought for sure Nash being a little bit younger, having that wrestling background, that teams would really gravitate towards that. But Ty's the older player, but he's been the leader of that defense, and it was a good defense, and he plays that outside like defensive end in the 3-4. So I don't know. I like him. We'll take him there. We just get like 2 nice combos there of defensive tackle with Alfred Collins, the true nose, Ty Robinson, who can do a little bit more 3-tech free stuff. Your defensive line's gotten much more young and athletic.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that pairing's very good. Then you throw in, Scorton in there too. Like, I think you got 3 guys, you're hoping 2 of them hit within their first, part of their rookie contract that you want to, there's 2 of those guys that you want to keep around. I think with Scorton being the biggest swing there, that he's the guy that probably the guy that has like the biggest miss potential of those 3, because I just think that Ty Robinson and Alfred Collins are just so kind of safe in what floor they provide. So at the very least, you are getting a safe floor from those 2 guys that you kind of take in the middle rounds.
Yeah, and I mean, you can write the narrative in your head too, like, oh, the Chiefs, they get blown out in the Super Bowl by a young athletic defensive line by the Eagles, so the Chiefs invest. It'll be the trendy thing this draft is, everyone loan up on the defensive line. So now we're several seltzer shots, several chugs of seltzer on day 3 of the KCSN live stream of the 3rd day of the draft, and now it is pick 226. Christian, where do you want to go?
There are a few places I would look. I think this is a good spot for linebacker if you're looking for somebody like that to come in and maybe play some special teams reps and, add something to the team. Right now, you're to the point, round 7, where you're really just looking for developmental guys, in my opinion, and people who can maybe add in one realm or another, special teams wise, or maybe as like a developmental person. Any linebackers here that really take your breath away?
Yeah, and I'm going to ignore Smile Munden being available. I think this would be ludicrous if he was available here at this point. So I'm going to ignore him. I'm going to ask you, would you rather have a guy that is going to be a good special teamer? Not a guarantee, because nothing's a guarantee, but like I feel very confident that he's going to be a very good special teamer, and maybe you can teach him the linebacker. Or would you rather have a guy with a little bit more linebacker experience, a little bit more, he's a coverage linebacker, but just a little bit more linebacker, less special teamer, but maybe a lower ceiling?
I would probably say lower ceiling. I think draft good players is, Ben Veach's mantra, and somebody who has more experience, maybe not with the highest ceiling, but, can play well right off the bat, kind of fits right in his wheelhouse. So
So Nicholas Martin was a linebacker out of Oklahoma State. I thought he was he was very impressive at the Senior Bowl. And like I'd watched him a couple times throughout the year. And, you see he was kind of like the leader of this Oklahoma State defense. He was kind of doing a little bit of everything for them. He's a little undersized, but I do think that he provides good coverage. He understands zone concepts. There's a little bit of man coverage ability. I don't think he has sideline to sideline range, but I wouldn't say he's deficient in his range either. So like, I think if you are looking at the Chiefs and you're saying, what are they missing from their linebacker room right now? He kind of provides that with with the ability to be comfortable in coverage and then providing a little bit more range. So I kind of like Nicholas Martin at this point, if he's still available.
Yeah, I agree. I would also say maybe taking a look at running back. I think that we won't get, very many views if we don't add a running back at some point during this draft. So I'm not seeing, Raheem Sanders is available. Somebody who I really like out of South Carolina. Yep. Is he a player you have on your board a little bit higher than maybe consensus?
I don't know if I'm high. Well, if this is consensus, then yes, I'm definitely higher on him. I don't know where it is. I think this would be a good spot for him. He's not my favorite running back in the entire class just because I do think there's some like hip stiffness limitations there that might limit the amount of schemes or like what you can run with him. But at this point, when you're looking at, day 3 of the draft, finding a guy that's probably pretty good on power, gap scheme stuff where he's getting straight downhill, maybe outside zone where he's just having to make one cut and not read out a bunch of stuff, not having to necessarily work laterally behind the line of scrimmage. I think that will be where he'll shine. And the Chiefs necessarily don't do a ton of it, but they do enough. And then his ability as a receiver on third down, his size, speed profile is very much the type of player the Chiefs like. So yeah, I'm completely good with Raheem Sanders here. I think this is a very good value for a running back. This seems very much like a Vicha. There's super talented 1,000-yard rushers that can be had on day 7 or day 3 type of pick.
Let's do it then. Raheem Sanders.
Yeah. I like the pick. I like his ability on third down. I think there's a little bit of, and like Kareem Hunt is probably slated for the third down running back role right now, but Sanders gives you a lot more dynamic ability there. And kind of like Pacheco, I don't know if he always runs to what his time speed is necessarily, but when a crease is available, both of those guys have the ability to really, put their foot in the ground and get going. So hopefully between the two of them, you probably hit a few more big runs throughout the year.
I'm interested in what your thoughts on Donovan Jackson. A guy who this time last year was, getting video game covers and being one of the top running backs in the class and obviously lost his job and really struggled this year. Now, I think part of that is due to the fact that Michigan just presented zero threat as a passing offense this year. And if you ask me, of those guys that were sitting on the board, what player do I think has the highest ceiling? It's Jackson. The vision, to me, it's just Isaiah Pacheco again. Like, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between them as players as far as their play speed, the vision, those type of things. What are your thoughts on Donovan Jackson out of Michigan?
Donovan Edwards running back. Right. Sorry. No.
Yeah. Freudian slip.
You're good. Yeah. I actually just finished writing him up for the KCSN draft guide today. He was my second to last write-up that I did. I wrote it up today. I like the player. He just always left me wanting more. And the more I watched him 2 years ago when they went on the national championship run, or actually specifically the year before that, I guess his sophomore year, he looked like a super dynamic, fast player that was always getting into open space. The last 2 years, he just seemed to really struggle to get up the speed. And I think it's because he's very stiff too. I mean, he's just a very stiff mover. It takes him a little bit to turn those hips and get going downhill. So I don't dislike him. I think he's actually really good on third down too. Like he got a lot better as a pass protector. Travion Henderson gets all the buzz. Donovan Edwards is like a very poor man's version of that because he is a good receiver, reliable hands, very good in pass pro. I just really didn't like his like running instincts or vision. Like you said, it was very Pacheco-esque, and I don't necessarily mean that in a good way at this point in time. I just think I would rather have somebody that gives you a little bit more instinctual running than what Pacheco and Edwards give you.
Okay, so Chiefs are back here on the board just a few picks later. This is 7th round, so we don't have to, reinvent the wheel here. Okay. Do they take Kyron Lacy so we can at least have one player with character concerns? Got to have one that's controversial. Homicide, fleeing an incident or an accident scene. Yeah, not drafting Kyron Lacy, which kind of stinks because he flashed at times this year, but no business drafting him. Okay, a couple names I want to shout out here. Zachary Franklin. I like both Illinois guys. Zachary Franklin's going to be more of a pure X. We got Royals, who is more of a Z/power slot. That could be a path you go. Another name I want to shout here. I'm not going to allow us to draft it because if people see us tweet out a mock draft with 2 Nebraska players, they're just going to think I bullied you into this. But Tommy Hill was a guy at one point that Field Yates was putting in first round of mock drafts after he had that interception of Shadur Sanders. Big, long, physical press corner, a wide receiver convert. I like him if he'd kick back to safety too. I think that's a possibility for him. Injuries have just really slowed him down. He's another name I like. What do you like here? This is a 7th round pick at this point, right?
Right. We're looking at a 7th round pick. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I actually don't mind going with a linebacker like a Nicholas Martin, or just an athletic linebacker. Just give me a linebacker that can run a little bit. Maybe you can develop them to take over for Drew Tranquil in 2 years, or if you can't reach something with Leo Chenal. So either Nicholas Martin, or if you wanted to focus more on special teams, you can take Kane Madrano, the UCLA linebacker. I think he just has a lot longer to go to play the position. He would be a pure special teams pick.
Okay. Well, let's put Nicholas Martin in here. I do think that there's, they've got one more year of Tranquil. Chanel's getting close to the end of his rookie contract. So I do think that there's something we should put in the hopper there. Clearly they've chosen Nick Bolton there for a little bit more long-term. Who will be Mr. Irrelevant this year? You just posted a great interview with Theo Weiss today on the KCSN channel that I got a chance to listen to. Love those player interviews you do. It's just a great way to kind of get to know the players. I was a big fan after hearing you guys talk to him and just kind of his mentality and stuff. I think he'd be a fun option. We could make Christian happy because he's a Mizzou alum too.
Okay. No, do it. Go ahead and throw Theo Weiss in there. Give some competition. I'm trying to think of the Chiefs wide receiver room right now, and like they don't have a ton of competition to play as their like big-bodied, sacrificial X wide receiver. So while I think we want Jalen Royals to kind of win that spot at this point in time, I think go ahead and hitting us with some competition from Weiss there is good, even if he ends up on the practice squad for a year or something like that.
Okay, well, so overall, just to recap the draft here real quick. Pick 31, the edge out of Texas A&M, Nick Scorton. Round 2, pick 63, Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami. Round 3, pick 66, the big defensive tackle, Alfred Collins. Round 3, pick 95, Jalen Kansas City Royals, the wide receiver out of Utah State. Round 4, big Ty Robinson, the 3 tech from Nebraska. Round 7, the halfback from South Carolina, Raheem Rocket Sanders. Round 7, pick 251, Nicholas Martin, the linebacker with some upside. And round 7, pick 257, Luther Burden's running mate, Theo Weiss Jr., the wide receiver out of Missouri. I will take this. We'll just forward this to Brett Veach and do that right there. I think, it was a great example too there of just like how the running back class went, because I mean, how many teams do you think this year will not take a running back? Because it's a position that you can use 2 or 3 of on the field. And I think a lot of people look at the success of Saquon, Derrick Henry, or the two-headed monster in Detroit and say like, hey, we can use that. Like, that's why I think, Henderson has such high upsides, because I think a lot of people are going to point and just be like, oh, that's Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I think it's good for this running back class that they just had these veteran running backs who went to new teams that were good players, and they built their offenses around them. And it was successful. And then right around then, this really good running back class comes right as the NFL is trying to revalue the running back position. So I definitely think you could see some guys get, I don't want to say overdrafted, but you just might see a run on running backs go in the middle of day 2. It's like, I keep running to the same scenario when I'm doing drafts. If you're not taking a running back at that round 2-3 turn for the Chiefs, I don't know if I love the value that you end up getting at the end of round 3 or even in round 4. It almost feels like a position that if you want a guy to draft over Isaiah Pacheco on the depth chart, over Kareem Hunt, whoever the running back one is, you might have to go a little bit earlier. And if you wait until day 3, you might be just drafting another person to slot into the rotation rather than to take over at the top of it. So I do think you got to balance that if you're the Chiefs of, hey, we do want to get better at running back, but that means a bigger investment than I think fans have recalibrated their minds to think about over the past 10 years. And it looks like we're swinging the other direction in the value around the game again.
Awesome. Well, the last question we'll ask you, it's what we've asked all of our guests. We've kind of, brought in the figureheads of draft Twitter here. We've had Daniel Harms. Now we've had you. So at pick 31, not what you want them to do. Gun to your head, as some people would say. Who are you picking at pick 31? Who do the Chiefs pick?
Who will the Chiefs pick at pick 31? Whoo-wee. I'm going to go Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. It's not necessarily a slide. I think you've seen his value kind of rising up the boards right now. I think that is also coming on the backs of Kenneth Grant, not necessarily doing all the testing until his pro day, to so many people having questions about Walter Nolan's character, but nobody has shared what they are, which makes me feel like it's like Kayvon Thibodeau when he was coming out, where there was rumblings about how he had issues, but it didn't end up mattering to a team. So I think Harmon's climbing up boards because they are dropping other people. Not that he's a bad player. I just think that he's more of a later third of round 1. And if he's there for the Chiefs, I think they sprint to the podium to take that D tackle.
Awesome. Matt, we're all smarter Chiefs fans and draft Nicks for having you on today. Make sure you're following him at Matty_KCN. Maybe he will, bull rush a baby calf or something like that at some point. The cow combine, it's a big deal.
Listen, it is. I got 2 new goats now. I got to work in my drag hand, so maybe I got to get them both to come at me at the same time so I can practice it a few times.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and make sure to tune into the lab live tonight on the KCSN Sports Network.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I had a good time. Thank you for having me on.
See ya. There he goes. Great work from Matty Lane over at KCSN. Always fun to do these guest mock drafts. We like to bring people on who are outside of our realm. One, because we have our own biases, right? Like if I was running that, we would have drafted like Ty Robinson, Tommy Hill, Isaiah Neer, and we just would have drafted a bunch of Nebraska players. So it's great. And I mean, guys like Matt, guys like Daniel Harms, they've got great perspective, but they still have that Chiefs flavor to them. So we've loved having the guest mock draft series. We'll probably have one or two more, hopefully, before the draft comes. And, you know, mock drafts, it's the spice of life.
Oh, dude, it's always nice to have somebody like you said with that like Chiefs kind of red and gold colored glasses on just a little bit, and especially with all the experience, man. He's been doing this a long time, so having him as a resource was incredible. Would love to have him back on. Great, dude.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I feel like I could sit and just like, I'm not even podcasting at that point. I'm just shooting the shit with them for like 2.5 hours about the draft. I could easily do it. But speaking of talking about the draft and everything, real quick before we get out of here, we want to go through our top 10 running backs. I think it's one of the most exciting positions to talk about in this draft. And I also think it's a position that's really going to kind of control the draft. I think we're going to see a couple of runs. I think, you know, I'd set the over under on 2.5 running backs in the first round. I expect a big run on day 2. And if you told me like the Chiefs are trading up in round 2, nothing would shock me if it's running back. And I think realistically, looking at the positions of need, looking at the Chiefs draft capital, that's probably one of the positions that the Chiefs can get the most explosive or increase their explosiveness on offense this year is at running back. And I don't think any move that they've made this year with bringing in Elijah Mitchell, Kareem Hunt should stop them from doing that.
Oh, 100% agree. And what's crazy about this running back class is that there's consensus on the top 3, but after you get past that, it seems like everybody has a different opinion. Like some people see Trayvon Henderson as like this incredible second coming of Jamal Charles, and some people see him as like a purely 3-down running back. And it's one of those ones we talked about, just like going through the first round of like picking every team's pick and seeing where, you know, your favorite prospects end up. And it's like, man, this could go either way for like half of the running backs on this class. Like Dylan Sampson, a guy people are really, really high on, could be a day 2 pick, could be a day 4 pick. Depends on the team and how the league views him. But yeah, it definitely a full draft class though. Full deep running back class.
Okay, so let's get into our ratings here. Let's start at 10. Who do you have as your 10th overall running back?
I have the running back from Kansas, Devin Neal. Definitely a fun watch. Somebody who, if you are looking at like textbook running back play and you go, man, this guy has great vision, great feet, really sees what's out in front of him. That's like you show that to a high school running back and you say, watch this guy and watch how he plays, and our offense is going to be fantastic.
I have Neal at 8, so not a huge disagreement there. I feel like Devin Neal just brings a lot of starter qualities that he, like if you wanted to bring in a guy, let's say you're a bad football team, and I don't mean this because he's a bad player, but you just need a running back that can be competent and do pass protection, do pass receptions, do running between the tackles, run outside zone. I think Devin Neal can do all those things for you. I like his feet. I think that he's shiftier than he gets credit for. I think that the running back testing was insane this year as far as the combine goes, that he's like a better athlete than he's probably given credit for. I don't know how high the ceiling is. And the other thing I'll bring up, quite a workload for him. He came back for another year at Kansas. I think he's one of the few guys with over 700 touches at the college level. Something to consider, especially with the running back position where it's like, you know, you don't see a lot of them get extended for a second contract. So injuries, those type of things, they could be a concern. But I like Devin Neal. And if you told me the Chiefs take Devin Neal, I think there's a real chance that he could be the Chiefs' leading running back by the time the playoffs come around.
Oh, yeah, 100% agree. And you talk about textbook running back play. That's Devin Neal. He's that guy. Super fun to watch.
My number 10 is Cam Scatterby, who you have at number 9. So let's just talk about him right now. So when I look at Cam Scatterby, I do not see a guy who is going to be a every down running back at the NFL. To me, first off, I think you talk about the great contact balance, the ability to play through with power, clearly some long speed concerns, right? But you can't tell me that his ability to block and shed tackles won't make him a valuable asset at the NFL. However, I don't see a guy who's going to be able to be the full three down guy. He's got nice hands. I think he's a pretty good pass catcher, but I don't think that he can pass protect either. And I'm not sure he's a guy that you want out running routes because of that lack of long speed. So Cam Scatterby, what are your thoughts on him out of Arizona State?
So watching him, I kind of got Marshawn Lynch vibes just with the contact balance and him like not having that really long speed. He's a bowling ball, man. Like 5'10", 220 pounds. That's a short, thick guy, and you can tell when he runs. My biggest concern was really ball secure. Like, again, I always go back to this coaching mentality of like, okay, what do I want out of a running back? Ball security, and I want you to be able to block. Well, those are two things that, you know, he kind of struggles with. 10 fumbles over the past 3 seasons. Runs really upright as well. Something that I see. But I just like the upside of him maybe developing into a good pass protector. More than I do. Like, I just see his ceiling as a little bit higher than Neal's, which is why I have him a little bit higher in my rankings.
Yeah, again, with Cam, like, I just see a guy who will have a productive NFL career, but I think it's as a short yardage back. To me, I think, if you could have a backfield with someone who's more explosive and dynamic and then have him mix in, I think that would be the best usage for him. I think if you're planning on bringing him in and being your lead running back, he's another guy that, like, the carries, they're a lot in college. So I think the ceiling is pretty low on him. My number 9 is RJ Harvey. Let's talk about him a little bit. I don't see him on your board. So tell me, why do you hate RJ Harvey?
Okay, so part of me is just a little guy syndrome of like, hey, I like my running backs to be 6 foot tall and I like them to be fast. He is not 6 foot tall, and I have a few concerns about his vision. I don't think he's a bad prospect by any means. I just see him and I see somebody who's not going to be able to be in there protecting the quarterback on third downs regularly. Why are you so high on him? I mean, 9 is high.
Well, so first off, I like his feet a lot. Fast feet. I think he has pretty good vision as far as being able to bounce things out and knowing when to stick in. I think that he's an above average pass catcher. One thing I love about him, he finds the end zone, man. Like, he consistently scores touchdowns. To me, I just think he's a guy that, and I want to say this distinctly, I feel like running backs are at their best when they're dogs that haven't ate in like 3 or 4 days and they'll do anything for a scrap. And he runs that way. And I don't necessarily mean that like Cam Scatterby runs more physical, but I just feel like he gets the most out of every carry that he can get. And I think do I think you draft RJ Harvey and are like, wow, we did it. We've got a top 5 running back in the NFL. No, but I do think that he's a guy that you get that raises the room, raises the floor of the room. And then like, you can design stuff for and makes the room much more explosive. Like, one thing that I keep trying to remind people too is like Isaiah Pacheco is still on this team. And while we did not see his best this year, this time last year, people would have been mad if you were going to try to replace them. RJ Harvey with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, that excites me. So all those things being said, I like those. I like those elements of his game. And I think like you're making the offense more explosive. So that's why I like Harvey. I understand that the offense, it's Big 12 offense. It's a little gimmicky, but I really like him in the open field too.
No, I agree. And he's a home run threat anytime he touches the football. Like, he has the juice. He's absolutely fast enough to break one. And if you're looking at him as like a rotational guy, I 100% agree with you. Like, he would be a great Chiefs fit. I just have a few other players that I really like just a little bit better than him.
Okay, so I think this one will surprise some people. We're both pretty low on Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. I had him on my do not draft list, which if you didn't get a chance to listen to that was on the OG Hour last Thursday. My concerns around Caleb Johnson are more about just how many outside zone carries he's had. He's had less than 50 carries this season of between the tackles. Almost everything is outside zone. So Caleb Johnson, I thought that he's a modest athlete, bigger frame. To me, it's just the Chiefs, they run a lot more man duo gap run schemes at this point. I feel like that's what their offensive line is best suited to. Now, you want to tell me they bring in Elijah Mitchell, they've got Jalen Moore, maybe they're going to start moving more. Like Kingsley Suamati is a highly, highly athletic guard, Maybe they're going to start getting back to the outside zone, which they used to run a lot with Jamal Charles back in those days. But why are you a little bit lower on Caleb Johnson?
So that's definitely part of it. The other part I would say is he kind of lacks that top end speed that I think you look for in a guy, especially with how he's placed in some of these rankings. Like some people have him third or fourth overall, which again is we're both, not up to that on him. But I think he does a great job of like planting his foot and getting upfield. He really has that ability to like long leg, just plant, go upfield, get distance. But I just don't see him that translating well. That part of it translates well, excuse me. But I don't see him running in between the tackles, like you said, at a high caliber NFL level. And I think that part of that is because he doesn't have a whole lot of experience. I think part of that is he runs so long legged. It's like, I don't think he has the feet quickness to be able to make those reads, be patient, and then make his cut. He does really, really well when he has that like little bit of steam going outside, but straight up picking a hole super, super fast. I just don't see that vision that I see in other players that are in this draft.
Yeah. And, I think with him, the passing production, mainly screens and dump offs. He had a backbreaker of a screen against Nebraska that I will not forget. But for the most part, I mean, this isn't a guy that you're planning to run out in the pattern anytime soon or, running out of the slot. So really, me and you are pretty consensus here going forward. One guy that you're higher on than I am, and I do like this player, is Brashard Smith, the running back out of SMU. So why don't you talk a little bit about Brashard Smith? He's your number 6.
So I definitely see him as like a Travis Etienne plus kind of player where he's a receiver out of the backfield. Whenever he was at Miami, he was a wide receiver. Then he transitioned to a running back at SMU. Super athletic, 7.12 RAS, 4.39 40 time, which for a running back is crazy. I mean, like that's in the top 95th percentile. I just like what he brings to the game, man, as far as a receiving back. And
wide receiver convert. This was, I think, either his first or second year playing running back. So we've seen that work. The kid who's with the Giants now, name is escaping me. Give me a second. Tyrone Tracy. Yeah, a running back convert from Purdue, and was one of the better rookie running backs this year. And in fact, he might have been the best considering how disappointing the rookie running back class was.
Oh yeah, well, you definitely see those comparisons there when you're watching him. He's so quick, he's so fast. He definitely has the vision. It's a little unreliable at times. You'll see him make some, try to go in that back cut where just wait it out a little bit, make your read towards the play side, not cut backside as often as he does. But that's something that he needs to work on. And he's not really a guy. I don't think. He's kind of like Devon Achane, where, hey, he's a lethal threat. If he gets the ball in his hands, he could score at any time. But you always worry, hey, you're 5'10", 190 pounds. That's not a running back weight. It's very, very hard to hold up repeatedly when you're getting tackled by 6'6", 300-pound defensive linemen. So I think that could be a concern at the next level as well. But I see him fitting into this passing game. I see him coming in. And being a reliable weapon for Patrick Mahomes, who, Andy Reid, he's going to want to throw the ball 100 times a game if he can. He absolutely fits into that scheme.
And then me and you have the same, like 1 through 5, basically. Mm-hmm. Now, let's play it a little bit different. So for reference, we have DJ Giddens, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Ashton Jeanty, and Omarion Hampton in that order. So let me play a different game with you. How high would you draft? And let's just factor in a trade here. So pick a spot in the draft. How high would you be willing to go for Judkins or Travion Henderson? So let's say pick 31 and work your way down.
Travion, I would not trade up for at all. I do have some vision concerns. Other than that, he's a fantastic player. Like great. I mean, he's almost like that Jerick McKinnon extra lineman in the backfield when he's pass blocking. Like he will obliterate a blitzing linebacker and just take him out of the play, then get up and get out on his route. Like he has that ability. I just question that vision. Quinshon Judkins, I think if he's at pick 31, you're ecstatic. I think if he's at pick 29, you maybe try to trade up for him. But past that, I'm very, very hesitant to trade up in a running back.
Well, I think like ideal scenario for Quinshon Judkins is like maybe a slight trade back where you get him
Yeah.
at like 40 or something like that. I would love that. Obviously, I'm always going to be a big fan of trading back. We've seen running backs. They're not always the most safe things. I think running backs in the first round, they're about a 50-50 proposition at best. Obviously, we both really like both of these players, but how much of an impact can they have? Especially for, like we've said, it's Andy Reid. Like how much is he going to run the ball? Especially, if you spend pick 31 on Quinshon Judkins, you still have Isaiah Pacheco, you still have Kareem Hunt, you brought in Elijah Mitchell. I mean, what are we talking? Maybe 10 touches a game for Judkins at best. That made me just not the best allocation of draft resources. That's bitten the Chiefs in the back recently. Now, I will say Judkins and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like going back, I went back and looked at it, like the RAS was pretty middling for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It just didn't fit with a lot of the other first round picks that they've made. So and I want to give a shout out here to DJ Giddens too. I have him as my 5th running back. He's right behind the Ohio State guys, and to me, the thing that I like for him, I think he's got enough speed that he does have home run speed. I love his second level vision, love his patience. I think he's an underrated pass catcher. Really like DJ Giddens, and like to me, he's kind of the like draw the line in the sand of like, I think this guy is going to be a true difference maker at the running back position year one. Year one, I want to clarify, because not all these guys, I think some of these guys can be, but are not necessarily that year one. So real quick, let's have the conversation about Genty in Hampton. Me and you both have Hampton over Genty, which might be a little bit of a hot take. For me, I come back to this. I think that Ashton Genty is the better current prospect. I think Omarion Hampton will be the better pro. The workload for Genty, I think that Hampton has a little bit more dynamic skills. I don't even know if we're going to see Genty test at his pro day. But I want to caution people. I think sometimes we get lazy analysis where like we view Genty as not a big pass catcher. He didn't have to do that this year, but last year he has been. But I just see a higher end skill set with contact balance, with breakaway speed. I think Hampton's a little bit more dynamic of a player, and I like his frame a little bit more than Genty, but to me, it's really close.
Oh, 100%. And not to poo Ashton Genty here. Like, he's a very, very good player. He's like Marshawn Lynch plus almost, where he's smaller. He has the contact balance. He has the long speed. You just look at Omarion Hampton and you think, if I was building a running back in a lab, it would look like Omarion Hampton. Like 6'1", 220, 4.48 40 time, 9.78 RAS. He has great vision. He's good at pass blocking. Like, he can receive the ball. He can be a workhorse. He can be whatever you need him to be. And not that Ashton Genty can't do those things, but I just think the ceiling with Omarion Hampton is so much higher that he played at UNC. Everybody knew who was getting the ball, when he was getting the ball. It was Omarion Hampton time, and he did a fantastic job with it. I mean, it was the same with Ashton Genty, but playing at UNC and playing at Boise is not the same thing. I mean, tougher opponents, more athletic. And I also think that Genty, you see the contact balance, you see him getting hit and having all these yards after contact. And you go, okay, but that's not an NFL guy tackling him, attempting to make the tackle. And part of that's O-line. Part of that is, him just being a great athlete, and his build, I think, probably helps him with that too. But sometimes you see that and you go, is that going to translate? Like, if Chris Jones is wrapping him up, is he going to be able to bounce out? Like, maybe he has that generational sort of, contact balance and being able to get off of those guys. But like, you're not 100% sure. With Omarion Hampton, I think you're damn near 100% sure his game's going to translate.
Yeah, for sure. So that's going to do it for us today. That was our top 10 running backs. Thank you to Matt, who joined us for the 7-round mock draft. Please continue to check out our stuff. This is the time. We are 1 month out from the draft. We are updating our big board every day with more player analysis. I just had one on Jared Ivey come up yesterday. We'll be continuing to update the Chiefs-specific draft big board every day, or as often as we can. And we will have a show every day of the week. So please be sure to tune into that. We are really ramping up our draft coverage. It's just a month away. It's so exciting. And if you like what you heard today, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're a few subscribers away from 55,000. So we would love to hit that 55,000 mark by the time we get to the draft. Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to producer Richard, who always does a great job helping coordinate the guests. And as always, go Chiefs.